how do you pull up? There's cops, there's ambulances, all this stuff in front of your house. Well, and your first thing isn't running going, oh my gosh, what happened?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but later on in the story, she made it sound like that she knew and even heard the gunshots. So she knew that her husband was dead, and then she goes and drops her son off to school.
After getting
goes
Burger
through
King.
a drive-through and gets some Burger King, goes and buys some flip-flops, and then she's like, well, I wonder now if those gunshots happened to kill him. Let's go back and see what happened. No. There's something really, really strange going on here. Welcome back, everyone. My name is Sam.
And I'm Melissa.
I was born and raised in the FLDS community. It is a polygamous group run by Warren Jeffs, and I moved out when I was 18 years old.
I was raised LDS. Sam and I have been married for 9 years and have 2 awesome kiddos.
Yes, we do. We want to quickly thank our donors, YouTube members, and our patrons over on Patreon. We really do appreciate your support.
Yes, and along with all of your support, we have now found out that in just a couple weeks here, we are going to be going out to the Dream Center to start on the project that so many of you have donated to for our Christmas fundraiser and helping the Dream Center remodel one of the rooms, which we found out is actually going to be the common area for the men.
Yes.
So we are very excited to see that project come to pass. Thank you all so much for those donations, and we can't wait to get to film and show you behind the scenes of transforming that room.
Yes, we'll take a little bit of before footage and a little bit of after footage of what we are able to do, what you all are helping us do. So thank you all so much for that.
Yes. Today we are back with The Sins of Our Mother, Part 2. And I think I told you before, like the first episode, I was like taking notes like crazy. It was just insane how much information they're putting. And I know there's only 3 episodes of this. And this is giving us just the bare minimum on the surface. But we're going to get through part 2 today. And hopefully here, when we finish this up, we will get some experts in what's going on with the trial to come and join us and shed some light on what's happening now with the people that were involved in this, because the craziness is...
This whole story actually makes me sick. We see so much and hear so much about things that are going on, and so much of it, unfortunately, because of what we are covering and the things we talk about, it's a lot of negativity, unfortunately. Not all of it, but a lot of what we do is. But this one here, it just hit me. I don't know if it was because of their kids and what they did, but it actually makes me sick. Watching this on the screen, I can't help but the feelings of just physically feeling sick. And we know that they're getting what they deserve, both Lori and Chad. They are getting what they deserve. You can Google that. We don't have to cover that. It's readily available for you online to see what their sentences are.
Yes, but this episode particularly, again, this is Sins of Our Mother on Netflix, if you wanted to go watch it yourself. This part 2, part 1 ended with Charles Vallow being shot. And that's right where it picked up going into this episode. And it was so crazy to see. I know we talked about in last episode that when Charles was trying to say that Lori was crazy, and every step of the way, when she's talking to police officers, she goes and gets a psych eval. She's just playing it off, calm, cool. Yeah. Oh, my husband and I are separated. He's the crazy one. He's the crazy one. All these emails Charles is sending, he's the crazy one for saying such things. I'm just the normal soccer mom who's, taking her kids to school. Mm-hmm. And once again, when he gets shot, Alex Cox, her brother, says that it's all in self-defense. But once again, these police officers are not putting together the lies that are like right in front of their face.
Right. And and this show shows pieces of here, pieces of this, that, and the other, that maybe the police officers at the time didn't have all of the facts, but you would think they should because of all the people they're investigating. But just right there, live footage, it shows them contradicting themselves so many times. I'm surprised there weren't more people confused by this and that they weren't arresting them sooner, honestly.
Yeah, even when Alex is talking on the body cam footage and saying that, no one was there and she took her son to school, but then all of a sudden his niece was there with a baseball bat. And yeah, it's hard to know if we're just seeing it hindsight 2020 or because we're getting these glimpses that are making sense of it. But throughout the entire investigation, it was an open shut case of self-defense. That's what makes sense to us. However, the investigative reporter from, I think it was Fox News, he said right from the beginning, it was very weird, and it was weird to us too on the body cam footage, that as soon as Lori came back to the house, she wasn't upset. She didn't seem shocked. She almost seemed like she was smirking. She didn't ask if her husband was okay. Even if you're separated, she didn't say, is he okay? What happened? How do you pull up? There's cops, there's ambulances, all this stuff in front of your house. Well, and your first thing isn't running going, oh my gosh, what happened?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but later on in the story, she made it sound like that she knew and even heard the gunshots. So she knew that her husband was dead, and then she goes and drops her son off to school.
After getting
goes
Burger
through
King.
a drive-through and gets some Burger King, goes and buys some flip-flops, and then she's like, well, I wonder now if those gunshots happened to kill him. Let's go back and see what happened. No. There's something really, really strange going on here. I can't believe it got as far as it did, honestly.
Yeah, and the fact that, I mean, it's crazy to think that if they had been caught in that conspiracy right there, the kids could still be alive. And that's the part that makes me so sad about it, right? Is that if she had just been stopped right there, so many other things wouldn't have continued to unfold the way that they did. But unfortunately, they kept going. Her lying about what happened, telling her son he had a heart attack, telling the school it was suicide, just going back and forth of all these things that had happened. And then now we see the text thread where it was Ned, this demonic person or this demon that overpowered him, right? Because he had become a zombie. Charles had become a zombie. But Ned had changed the life insurance policy. So there was like this money tie too, that she goes and tries to get his life insurance policy out. And I'm like,
3 or 4 days after he dies. So there's no waiting around for that. The
fact that he was smart enough to change his life insurance policy when things got weird, I'm like, good for you, Charles.
Yeah. Honestly, part of me wonders, I mean, of course, they're using this spiritual manipulation and religious stuff behind all of the, trying to claim that it's for these demons and these
lights,
whatever, this big mess of what they were claiming. But I have to wonder if most of it came down to money.
Yeah,
because it seemed like they kept trying to cash out on all of these different murders that they were causing. So it's either way, it just makes me sick.
Yes. So that happens. Charles is dead. And one thing I had to point out too, because I'm guessing a lot of people that are watching this documentary have never even heard the concept, the Gadiantons, or what that means.
How did he say that?
He said it because him and Lori were talking about the fact that Charles was dead. And Ned changed the insurance policy, meaning this demon who had taken over Charles' body, right? And Chad Daybell wrote back to her and said, it's a step to bringing down the Gadiantons. Now, I want to shed some light on this because the Gadiantons, they were robbers and murderers in the Book of Mormon, scripture. That all Mormonism, FLDS, fundamental Mormonism, mainstream Mormonism, which the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was the religion that Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow were a part of, and the church that I grew up in. So Gadiantons was a group of robbers and murderers. And I thought I would just read for those of you who aren't familiar with them. And this is just from the LDS church website in the Guide to the Scriptures. But it says, Gadianton Robbers. In the Book of Mormon, a band of robbers founded by a wicked Nephite named Gadianton. Their organization was based on secrecy and satanic oaths. And the Gadianton Robbers end up wiping out most of the Nephites, or like the good people in the Book of Mormon. So when he's saying that's a step to bringing down the Gadiantons, it's this, once again, this play on the good versus evil. Gadiantons are known as the evil murderers, satanic oath takers, people in the Book of Mormon. So it never ceased to amaze me as we were going throughout this. Sam and I stopped and talked multiple times, like, while they're doing all of these things that are so far extreme and outside of Mormonism, like if you have the religion here, they're like way over here left field. But yet they keep taking like pieces from it.
Yep.
And they keep going, like later they talk about going to the temple frequently. So they're taking these pieces of Mormonism that they want, that works for their agenda. They're going and participating in LDS, like sacred spiritual rituals at this time, like within the temple. It gives me the ick.
What better way to manipulate someone, though? take some pieces of things that they already believe and say, this is the way that it is because of this, that, and the other, and just tweak it just a little bit to fit your agenda. Classic Warren Jeffs move here too, right? He read the scriptures. He used the Bible, the Book of Mormon, all of the commonly used scriptures throughout the mainstream LDS church and the breakoffs, and use those and just twisted it just a little bit to make it all make sense for him and his followers. And the Gadianton Robbers, once again, very popular in the FLDS church. And I've even mentioned this in some videos, that one of the mountains there was supposedly still possessed with Gadianton Robber spirits. And that's why we weren't allowed to hike it. So extreme people, like to take the things like the Gadianton Robbers and just harp on that thing because it sounds so scary and it sounds so bad. And that is the fear they use to, and the tactics that they use to convince people to do up to murder, even murder in this case. Just crazy how they're able to convince people to do this stuff.
Yeah, it was a lot of crazy. Then at that point, Tylee and Lori moved to somewhere cold. They're moving. Colby is trying to have his life. I can only imagine his poor wife. Like at this point, she's like, this is when I said, like, I'm done with your family. Like, this is crazy. People are getting shot, trying to take kids to school. Like, this is too much. And so they're kind of separating from his family, but he's still like trying to text his siblings that he loves and cares about. And he's getting these bad feelings. Like, this isn't how Tylee would text. This isn't how she would call. She wasn't calling. This isn't how she would talk back and forth. And it's just sad to see him continue to try to ask to talk to Tylee. And, oh no, she'll call you when she's ready. All this constant avoidance, right? Then Colby's wife, as they feel like something's not right with Tylee and they can't get a hold of her, his wife starts looking into the weird emails that Charles was sending before he passed away. The things that they said, we don't want to be in between your guys' marital issues. We don't want to deal with that. We have our own marriage. We have a baby. Like, leave us out of this. But she starts looking back at the things that he said that were all crazy.
It seemed crazy at the time when they thought their mom was normal.
Yeah, they thought mom was normal, and they thought Charles is going crazy, saying all this stuff about our mom, so we're going to ignore it. And then they found the ancestry or family tree, I think is what they called it, where from Chad Daybell had sent Lori how light and dark all the spirits were of the people in her life. And you could see, Colby is whatever number light and his wife is whatever number dark. And it's on this scale of 6 dark to 6L or 6 light.
And the higher the number, the more dark or the more light, depending. And they just marked with a D or an L on the scale.
And they're starting to categorize people, or Chad is starting to categorize people because he can tell what their spirit was. And it showed on there that Tylee was a dark spirit. And that's when Colby and his wife really started getting nervous about what was going on in this group. And they're hearing things on the podcast, and she's talking about how she's been to many worlds and fighting wars for millennia and just off the wall type of things, that they're getting more and more concerned about what's going on.
Yeah.
And then, and again, it's hard to know exactly the timeline, I feel like, because they're giving us all the information to be able to make this into 3 episodes. But they talked about zombies.
Which is just crazy, because that's where you take the religious aspect of it and then you just add, hey, let's take some fictional movies over here and add this to it to make it seem even more intense. But yeah, they use the term zombies, that these people basically, the people they claimed were dark or evil, their spirit would be stuck in limbo, and their bodies didn't have a spirit in them anymore. They were just these zombies, lifeless people. And in order to release their spirit from this limbo prison, they would have to kill the body. And that is how they justified murder.
Yeah. And so I think this Ned or whatever is what they were calling Charles when they also believed that some demonic spirit was taking over the body while their real spirit of that person was in this limbo, because they kept coming up with names for all of them, right?
Right.
So Charles was Ned. They talked about Tammy, his wife, ended up becoming, I think, Viola or something, Viola. And this is, again, like Sam said, this is their, basically Chad Daybell's kind of hit list. is, they're turned into a zombie now. We have to get rid of them so we can release their spirit.
But he said there were like, wasn't it 20,000?
20,000 zombies on the earth somewhere. This is like Orville LeBaron on steroids, though.
Yeah, I mean, if they had not been stopped, were they actually planning on killing 20,000 people? And then from there, of course, there's going to be more people that are getting on the dark side, and then they're going to...
Well, and the dark side was all the people that didn't agree with them or that were concerned about them or saying, you're acting odd, right? So
I just wonder where the 20,000 people... I'd be surprised if they knew 20,000 people. You know, like where did that number come from? Yeah. Just complete craziness, honestly. I can't even keep up with it.
No, some of the stuff we were like pausing over and over, like, what is going on? Another crazy aspect of this is the timeline, how quickly things were happening at this point, because it was July of 2019 when Charles got shot. October of 2019, Brandon, her niece's ex-husband, they were going through divorce, gets shot at through the back of a car, luckily got missed. But he was like, I hope this isn't having to do with my ex-wife and her aunt and all of that. Of course it was, right? And then it just, like, everything happened so quickly. In October 9th, Tammy gets shot at. And of course, Chad acts like, whoa, that was crazy. Never saw that coming.
That one's weird, though, because she was shot at with a paintball gun. Okay, explain that one to me. You trying to bruise somebody? You know, I don't get this. I don't get it.
But then 10 days later, she died. Tammy died. Healthy woman in her 40s.
They didn't have a reason for their death, did they?
No, I don't think they had a reason until they exhumed her body later. But just 10 days later, Tammy dies. And, of course, they go and take out her insurance.
Tammy was the wife of Chad and had been married with him for a long time.
A long time, yep. They had a whole bunch of kids. All of a sudden,
she slips to the dark side.
When he met Lori and is in love with Lori now. So then all of a sudden, she's a zombie and needs to be taken care of. And this friend of his, or ex-friend of his, Julie Rowe, who I think before had said she was a prophetess or something along those lines, said the Lord told her that Lucifer told Chad he and Lori were the king and queen to start the Church of the Firstborn, which reminds me of the Banner of Heaven. I believe they also named their church the Church of the Firstborn.
Which isn't uncommon. I mean, I feel like the phrase firstborn, meaning Jesus Christ, is very commonly used. So it wasn't like they made up something. They just thought, this makes sense.
Yes. So, yeah, apparently...
So she said the Lord told her, what's her name again? Sorry?
Julie Rowe.
Julie. The Lord told her
that
Lucifer had told them. And she's like, so Julie says, these guys are crazy. And I had to pause. Because it's not
them, it's Jesus Christ.
I had to pause and I was like, wait a minute. Wow. It's just perspective, right? Because we're thinking this Julie person is crazy too. What she even said, she said, some people probably look at me and say that I'm crazy. And really, it just comes down to perspective, the way you were raised. Because the way I was raised, I thought was perfectly normal until I moved away from it. And then I look back now and I say, whoa, I was raised in what, you know?
Yeah.
So you don't really understand how crazy it might seem to others until you're no longer a part of it.
Absolutely.
So and I just found that interesting that she was calling them crazy, and yet she's a prophetess over here prophesying and seeing visions and things too. Anyway, just interesting.
At this point, they say that the end of the world is going to be July 22nd, 2020. And their group, which seems pretty small, like I know he was an author and had like bigger preparedness groups, but the group of people they're talking about, at least at this time, was pretty small. You know, it was like her niece and who she ended up marrying and her brother, Alex, and I forgot the woman's name that he ended up marrying. But their marriage is happening because they have to be sealed for eternity before the end of the world happens, which isn't a new concept.
End of the world. It's always about the end of the world.
The end of the world.
It's always about we have to prepare now because the end of the world is nigh. You know, it's coming, and
you need to get married. You need to be married so that you're sealed, so that you can be okay. And after the end of the world happens, which is something that the FLDS claims, and it was something after they had gotten married. I was shocked. They said they were going to the temple more often. And when they say temple, they don't have their own temple. They're not an organized religion. They are all still members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so these people, while murdering people over here, what they're trying to do and getting rid of demons and zombies and all of this, they're going to the temple for inspiration, which is crazy to me.
So what was the name of the one that married Alex? What was her name?
Zulema?
Yes, if we're saying that right.
Oh, I know I'm saying it wrong. But
anyway,
the
one that starts with a Z, the one that married Alex. It sounded like she was the one that mentioned that after she was married or sealed to Alex, she felt this overpowering spiritual, I guess, boost, and she felt like she needed to keep going to the temple more and things like that, the LDS temple. But it sounds like from later information, she wasn't a part of the actual killing and things like that.
No, she didn't know, because at some point she felt like something was going on, and she was asking Alex, who she was married to, like, what's going on? And he goes, I think I'm going to be their fall guy. And she's like, fall guy for what?
And then before she could get any more answers, he ends up dying as well.
Yep, and that's what I was going to say. Yep.
So
he
anyway,
died
I don't know if Lori and Chad were still going to the temple or not. I don't know about them. But some of the people in their group, whether or not they had all of the information, they were still a part of this Daybell group, I guess you could say, were still very much active in the mainstream LDS church. So it's interesting that they could be a part of both worlds. That just seems so crazy.
Yep. And then starting in November, again, all of that just barely happened in October, right? They're shooting at people. Tammy dies. Well, she gets shot at. 10 days later, she dies. And then November 26th, there's a welfare check on JJ because his grandparents are like, we haven't actually seen or heard from him in months. We need to know that he's okay. It's being ignored. So they call the police, and, you know, she's caught in more lies. Oh, well, JJ's with Kay. JJ's with her grandmother in Louisiana. Well, that's interesting because Kay's the one that called us to do this welfare check. So we know you're lying. Strike number one, right? And luckily the police in Idaho seemed a lot more like on top of things, because the ones in Arizona have let stuff slip through like over and over again. But in Idaho, they do the welfare check that day. The next day they go back. Lori says JJ's with Melanie Gibb, or was it that same night?
I think it was the next day.
And then the next day, they coordinate with the police to go to Colby's house. And they're like, have you had any contact with your siblings? No. That's November 27th. By December 11th, Chad Daybell's wife's body's exhumed. December 12th, Alex dies. December 20th, the kids are declared missing. So this is all within a couple weeks. It's like boom, 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 boom. Nobody knew, but clear back in November 5th, Chad and Lori had gotten married, which no one found out about until the missing children were declared, and everybody's looking for Chad and Lori. And as soon as they showed the pictures of the missing kids, it made my heart sink, because living in Utah, well, we had just barely moved to Las Vegas, but their pictures were everywhere around us, kids, being, you know, near all of these states, near Arizona, near Utah. And pictures of the kids were everywhere. Everybody was looking for Chad and Lori. And I just remember that so vividly, everybody looking for them. Yeah. And then they find out, well, they get a search warrant January 3rd to get to search Chad's home and try to find out more. And they exhumed Tammy's body to try to find out what was really going on, because at this point, they're like, all these missing people all happen to be around these two people who we can't find. Very interesting.
The ease with which Lori was able to lie, that is just... whoa, that was one of the things that really stood out to me. She didn't skip a beat. I mean, where's your children? Oh, they're with their grandmother. No big deal. Like, she didn't even think for a second.
Oh, they're with my friend.
And I don't know if it was that she had all of this planned out in advance. Like, if someone asks this question, this is the answer. Or if she was just a pathological liar and just came up with things on the spot. But man, I can see why she would be so convincing. You have to give credit a little bit to those that just believed her. I'm not saying that they should have, but you can't really blame them too much when you see that she just stayed calm, like no big deal. Those aren't the normal things you see when someone's lying.
Well, and she was like guilt tripping her friend, Melanie Gibbs, too.
Right.
Oh, JJ's with my friend Melanie in Arizona. He's fine. He's fine. He's with my friend Melanie. And then her friend Melanie's calling and obviously recorded it. I don't know if the police were helping her record it or not, but it's a recorded message. And she's saying, what's going on? Where are the kids? Oh, they're fine. Well, then why'd you say they were with me? Well, because I knew that I could trust you because you know me. Okay, that's great. But if we're friends, then why are you telling the police a lie about me? Oh, well, you know us better than that. You know us. That's all she kept saying. You know me. Like that was supposed to be
And
enough.
She said something.
And like, it's so convincing, right? Like,
yeah. And she said something.
Why didn't you trust me?
Like all the information that you have, Melanie, you should feel bad for even questioning me, basically, is what she's saying. And all of that being said, at this point, I'm pretty sure that her children are no longer alive. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, they are. They're already gone at this point.
A mother is living her nonchalant, carefree life, knowing what happened to her children.
Yeah.
Like how,
and then gets found in Hawaii.
How sick? How sick can you be? I'm speechless.
It's found in Hawaii, in the same place that she was with her children too. So it wasn't like she was escaping. I want to escape all memories of my children and go and pretend like I'm a different person, live a different life and move. Well, she like literally went back to the places that she spent tons of time with her kids. Obviously very disturbed in the head. But in January 26th, they were seen in Hawaii. And when she failed to show any proof of her children, they arrested her. And all she kept saying was no comment. And I remember this in real time being like, if her kids are okay, which is what she kept claiming, they're fine, they're safe, everything's fine. It's not that hard to say, here we are, or just show them. And I feel like I remember when they found them in Hawaii thinking, if they found her and this guy and the kids aren't with, that means that they're gone. And that was heartbreaking to know, because at this point, this had been months. And you're like, if you don't know where your kids are, then that means that you did do something horrible.
Seems like Chad was the one that was coming up with the people that he thought were dark and light, right?
Yep.
Did Lori, that you saw, I didn't in this film so far. By the way, there's probably a lot of you that know more about this than I do, that have been following the case along the way the whole time. We're basing, or at least I'm basing my information off of what the show is showing us, and then we'll get an expert on it to come and maybe get the nitty gritty and more information. But based on the show, it didn't say that she ever was in charge of numbering people dark or light.
Not from what I know. From what I know, that was Chad's job.
So that means that it would have to be Chad that put her children
on the hit list, basically. And said that they're dark. Mm-hmm. And then Lori just went along with it. Mm-hmm. Okay. So Chad's he's just, ugh. Anyway,
wow.
So that's where it ended on this, is that they are now caught in Hawaii. And so that was the end of part 2. And yeah, it's just the craziness continues. So sad, so heartbreaking. We will be reacting to the last part next week. And then, like we mentioned, we will have someone come on with us, and we will do an interview with someone who knows all the nitty gritty of what's been happening since they were arrested and after all of this happened, and what that means for them through this trial and what the trial has looked like.
Yep. Yeah. So, man, I'm sorry you've had to listen to all this.
Yeah.
It's tough. Man, I feel like it's important to discuss things and try to make sense of things, especially things that are so crazy like this, that yes, there are some reasons that maybe some people could think certain ways based on their upbringing or this, that, and the other. But ultimately, these kinds of people, they're just not right. They're just not right in the head. There's just no way, regardless of your upbringing, that you should go and do something like this.
Yeah, so sad. Yeah.
So anyway,
if you want to stay tuned for the last episode next week, or want to hear more of what it was like for Sam to grow up in polygamy, then please like and subscribe.
Yes, thank you all so much. We look forward to talking with you soon.
Talk to y'all soon.